behalf of CrossCheck Media and Biz Talk Today TV, we have a very special report from Buy, Hold, Sell. I am your trader, Todd Schoenberger, and I am joined by my friend and co-host, Tobin Smith, and we have a very special guest, a subject matter expert on the oil industry, Fernando Valle. He is the managing director and head of energy at Hedgeye Risk Management. Fernando, welcome back to Buy, Hold, Sell.
Pleasure to be here, Todd. Good to see you.
Absolutely. So I got to ask you, we saw oil, quite a bit of activity, obviously. It started last night when the futures market opened at 6 o'clock Eastern time. And especially after the bombing in Iran, everyone was thinking Strait of Hormuz was going to be closing and therefore oil was going to be popping. But we didn't see that. We actually saw oil actually close down quite a bit today. What do you think of this, though? I mean, is everything over with? I mean, should we just assume that everything is status quo, or is this still a very volatile time for the commodity?
Well, definitely volatile. I think the when I saw 2% up, to us, it was never a likelihood that the Strait of Hormuz was actually going to be closed. And I think the market was also saying the strait's not going to be closed, but there's going to be there was an escalation and there was going to be a response. And then after that, we saw Iran essentially letting the US know, and the US and Qatar know that they were going to bomb US bases in Qatar and taking a lot of the pressure out. So the response from Iran was very luckily underwhelming relative to what the market was pricing in. And I think that's why you're seeing that drop off there. It signals that Iran is potentially not going to try to bring this to its head, and perhaps can't. And with that, a lot of the geopolitical risk premium that you have on Brent is being given back from the market.
Yeah, but Fernando, how much is Iran now really, in the real world, price determine the price of oil on a global basis? They're not as big as I think people think they are.
Yeah, it's true, Tobin. The economy is not that big. Their military prowess is not that big. And in fact, Israel was very successful in hitting some of their military targets. So I think, honestly, it was as underwhelming as it could have been on a response, again, for all the sake of all of our servicemen, luckily and gladly so. But they have very limited resources to close something as important as the Strait of Hormuz, which would also be very detrimental to their economy.
Yeah.
And I think the big sign that we keep looking for is Karg Island, which is an island off the coast of Iran that is responsible for 1.3 to 1.4 million barrels a day of their oil exports out of a total of about 1.7. If that was bombed, then Iran really has nothing to lose from going all out on the Strait of Hormuz. Since that hasn't happened, it seems like both sides are still just being, very aggressive, but not as aggressive as a total war would be.
Yeah. Well, how much of the oil price? Let's just take the worst case scenario that somebody does bomb that little island. I was looking at it last night, assuming there was going to be radars saying and so on and so forth, and there was nothing going on. But I mean, if that was to be stopped, how much would that increase oil prices, do you think?
I think it would probably be in the low double digits.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it could, because you really don't want to do that if you're the US unless you're really ready for a collapse of the Iranian state. And I don't just mean the government. I mean
Sure.
the state of Iran. It's only 1.5% of global oil supply, but again, you've now condemned a nation of 67 million people to abject poverty,
Oh,
and
wow.
they're going to do something. And there's definitely a lot of targets they could hit that they have not, because they have something to lose today.
Well,
If you take that away, they may not have anything to lose.
I was always impressed by the Iron Shield. I'm watching the Iron Shield mini rockets going up and blowing up that to me was a game changer. Am I over doing that?
Well, I mean, Tel Aviv still took some damage. It's certainly been very impressive, not just the Iron Dome, but the bunkers as well, and the alertness of the Israeli
Right.
state. And then the U.S. now has also blocked, I think President Trump said 13 out of 14 missiles. And then, you have to give credit where credit is due, but Jordan also knocked out some missiles headed towards Israel.
Ah,
So it's been a joint effort.
well,
So,
that go ahead to Todd.
well,
So, I
what,
mean, that's Jordan to have them participate. That changes a little bit of the mathematics, right? The balance.
Well, all the Gulf Council countries are not on Iran's side, to put it lightly.
Yeah.
So no one wants to see a nuclear Iran. So they are very much okay with the perspective of blowing up Iranians' nuclear sites.
Wow. Well, I didn't realize, Todd, that everybody. I was reading a little bit this morning that as Javier was saying that or Fernando, I'm sorry, that this is like an 18th century economy in the 21st century world that nobody likes. I mean, nobody likes.
right. Right. Well,
Yeah.
Fernando, here's the question I have for you. We had Maria Gillespie Dreyfus on the other day, and she was talking about how we're pumping 100 million barrels of oil out of the ground each day. So you take 1/5 of that. You have 20% that has to go through the Strait of Hormuz. I think oil traders aren't so much concerned about the supply coming out of Iran. It's just the disruption in that region because of the amount of oil that we're talking about. But with that said, what do you think, though? I mean, is going to be the long term catalyst here? Because we still have oil demand. There's probably we're close to a crisscross as far as the amount that we're consuming and then what we're bringing out or taking out of the ground. But the margin must be so thin that if we have any type of disruption, though, we could be looking at higher oil prices, and it doesn't necessarily need to be war. It could be a hurricane, correct?
I mean, you'd have to knock it out for a long period of time. So
Yeah.
the Strait of Hormuz would have to be closed for a long, because you have reserves as well, right? In China supposedly has over 1 billion barrels of strategic petroleum reserves, particularly because they're all strategic. We
Yes.
have upwards of 350 million barrels between commercial and strategic. And obviously we have a much higher production than China produced. 13.3 million barrels in the US plus another 4.5 in Canada. So significant output there. You'd have to knock it out for a while. And then the Strait of Hormuz is very difficult for any one country to control, especially Iran, that's a poor country, has limited military and naval assets. And then they're going against not just the US, but remember, Saudi Arabia is a very big arms buyer,
Yeah.
the U.S. The UAE is a big arms buyer. Kuwait, after the Iraq War, became a big arms buyer. And most importantly, I think China imports almost 6 million barrels a day between oil, refined products, and natural gas from that Strait of Hormuz. India is another 3.5 to 4 million barrels a day. How would they feel about Iran closing that? And they've been the biggest buyers of Iranian crude. So you would have to be a prolonged issue, and it's a state with limited resources and where their main buyers would be totally against it. So and then you come into the bigger point which you brought up, Todd, which is demand. But we're seeing with fuel demand in the US, and take that as a proxy more globally, because I think it's a similar situation, but consumers can't afford much higher oil prices. We're seeing that not because of oil per se, oil has been massively deflationary, but everywhere else in your wallet has been very inflationary, from healthcare, housing, childcare, all very expensive. And so if I saw somebody, I'm not going to take credit for this, but they said $80 oil is inflationary. $100 oil may be deflationary, because the consumer may just
Right.
buckle at that point.
Yeah. I mean, on the margin, uh, particularly if you're driving, as most Americans are, a SUV, for God's sakes, um, that when it costs $220 to fill up that SUV, and that's cash money, You're absolutely right. You're gonna depress utilization, which means you're going to depress demand. And you're one of the only guys who ever talks about the fact that the pocketbook still matters in the United States, Canada, and other large users. Question for you, Iran. Since I have almost a 5-week lesson plan in oil, that's about my extent of my education on it. I did learn that natural gas comes out of the ground when you're taking oil out of the ground. How does Iran, what do they do with their nat gas?
So mostly it's consumed domestically. When under the Obama administration, when sanctions were temporarily lifted in Iran, or eased, I should say, they actually started engaging some foreign companies. Total Energies was one of those, to start developing pipelines and more export capacity for natural gas. It's a very good point, because Iran actually shares the North Field, which is the largest natural gas field
Yeah,
in the world, with Qatar. And Qatar
yeah,
is the largest exporter of natural gas. So they have a ton of potential. It's not currently exploited, but it's something that could, if there was regime change, that they could do. But LNG is primarily a U.S. Technology, and so they would struggle to develop that on their own. I mean, Russia could potentially step in, but obviously they have other issues to deal with right now.
yeah.
Fernando, have you been to Iran?
I have not, but I love Persian food and Persian cultures.
Well, the reason why I ask, I was curious on these bunker buster. We're not going to talk about the military part of it, but the purpose of building this stuff underground. What I'm confused about, though, is how do they get the bomb? I mean, are there roadways? I mean, how do you actually get this thing out of the ground if they were to complete, if they're able to put something like this together, this type of a nuclear warhead?
You mean so what you're enriching in the subterranean enrichment factors is the uranium itself. So it wouldn't be the full missile. The missile is assembled elsewhere. It's the reactive portion of it, the enriched uranium, and the actual I forget the term now, but the actual nuclear component of the missile that's assembled there. The missile itself is assembled elsewhere and then put together.
Okay. Toby, do you have any idea how they bring that stuff out? I mean, it must be a molecule that's liquefied, right?
Well, you take uranium, and there's a process to it which converts that into this enriched plutonium, and then you put it in a freaking tank. I mean, that's what they do. If you look at Centrus Energy, LEU is the ticker symbol, by the way, been probably one of our best stocks in the last 12 months. They do all their work above ground, and yet when a nuclear plant orders it, it goes into a centrifuge type equipment and gets delivered, and it goes into the nuclear plant. So that part has been done for 50, 60 years.
Okay.
The issue, I think, with Iran certainly was that you got a crazy man running the organization, and people who had no business whatsoever being able to put fissionable nuclear power into a rocket and shoot it at someone. And I'm not the biggest Trump fan in the world, but I'm certainly a big fan of this. Uh,
Yeah.
he can't, you just couldn't let that do it. I'm Fernando. I'm always amazed. What the hell? There's like 60 million people in Iran. They can't just go over, go to the castle and knock the walls down and get rid of this guy.
That's a good question. I mean, if you remember, the Islamic Revolution was essentially that, with the Shah.
Yeah,
The issue is, I read a report from an Iranian citizen in Tehran saying that we're afraid of what's next if we topple them. If you look at Libya with Gaddafi, if you look at Syria, if you
right.
look at Iraq, they haven't really been very successful post deposing their dictators. And so uh, I think they're afraid of it's the devil you
Yeah,
know
I hear
versus
you.
the unknown.
Yeah, right. I mean, the enemy you know is better than the enemy you don't know. Um,
Right. And what I was asking, I was leading into the question of wondering why, because I'm assuming that the oil fields in Iraq or Iran are nowhere near these facilities where they're building these nuclear vessels. This the entire the chemistry of it. Am I correct? And the Israelis haven't hit any of these oil rigs, I guess.
They've hit some of the internal energy infrastructure. So the natural gas facilities have been hit. Um, and so they've hit some of it, and they also hit a nuclear power plant. So they're
mhm.
trying to destroy internal facing infrastructure. And again, you can't really easily export natural gas out of Iran unless you built LNG facilities, which obviously you're not going to do. So you're okay hitting the South Pars field facility, which is from the North Field. That's primarily natural gas for domestic consumption.
So what
All
kind
right.
of an
So
impact what kind of an impact does that have on, say, their GDP then? Because if the Israelis are cutting out some of their, I mean, that's their prize asset, right? So I mean, do you have any idea on what kind of a negative impact it's going to hold just off of those bombings alone?
So it's a prized asset, but it doesn't contribute a ton to GDP because 80% of their GDP is oil exports, which have
yeah,
not been hit. And
yeah.
so they're hitting the domestic quality of life part of GDP, the domestic GDP, and not the export portion of it, which is the majority of it. So they want to make they're exactly playing to Tobin's point. They're making everyone uncomfortable in their house to the point where they want to say, "Hey, we can't do with this government anymore," which I'm
Let's get
sure
rid of
they're
the
supposed
Ayatollah.
to. It's just that
It-
someone has to, as my colleague Neil Howe says, someone has to be the guy in the fourth turning that comes up in the fourth turning in Iran. Someone has to step up and lead the revolution. And if you think about it, since 1975, six, they haven't really allowed any new leadership. So it's been very difficult to have someone who's going to galvanize the populace against the Islamic Republic. So, but I'm sure
yeah,
they all see it as a failed
I
state.
have multiple friends in the DC area that all escaped Iran, and first off, they're the most loyal Americans you'll ever meet in your life. But I was on a golf trip recently with come of Reza Gazaba and some of the other guys, and they say, Toby, what you don't understand is you have this secret police in Iran that nobody knows who the freak it is. And they have a very effective way of making people disappear, and in the middle of the night type thing. And it's fear versus bravery, and right now fear, according to Reza and the other guys, is more powerful than the bravery.
Right, right. Yeah, no doubt about that. All right, Fernando. So, what do you think for tomorrow then? I mean, we got another rough night ahead. This show is going to be airing in a couple of hours. I mean, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot.
Put him on the spot.
Where do you, I mean, oil, I mean, it was such a drop today. I would imagine buyers will be coming in and bidding higher, correct?
I mean, I think there was probably some unwinding of positions here that led to this, and perhaps you're going to get some folks closing the shorts that they might have made as this started. I think that the rhetoric is going to be de-escalating. We've already seen President Trump saying, "Now let's stop and work towards peace and reconciliation." I don't know that we're going to get there very quickly. But Iran is, I think, this is tacit acknowledgement that they don't have a lot of allies left. And so I think, barring major offensive against the U.S. bases, which doesn't seem like it's the case, I would expect it to be, a much quieter day for oil. Um, Potentially some rebuilding of positions here after you get this 10% round trip that we saw today. Certainly, there's going to be some people that that got caught with
Yeah,
their
wrong-sided.
short pants. Yeah. So they're probably buying some place or closing out their short. So you might get a little bottoming here. But I wouldn't be surprised if, throughout the day we get further de-escalation if we see a couple more percentage point drops here. There was a fair amount of oil right now that's geopolitical risk premium. Um, and I reiterate my point on the demand side of the equation. We are fuel demand in the US over the past 3 years has very clearly peaked after the 4th of July weekend. Very clearly. And we have to think of it, it is what Tobin was saying, folks struggling to fill their SUVs, but it's also contractors that aren't going to new job sites because construction got delayed. It's major construction that got paused and that's not consuming diesel as much because of the tariff issues of April. They may have pushed back some of major capital spending a couple of months. So I think if you think just seasonally, we're still in the stronger parts of the
Driving season.
summer, but we're very close to the peak. And obviously, it takes a couple of weeks for you to see that impact. But 4th of July weekend very clearly has been the peak of U.S. fuel demand, and there's been widespread drops after. So I still don't like the refiners. You can pick and choose here because Marathon Petroleum, which is MPC, had a fire at their Galveston Bay facility, which is the second largest refinery in the U.S. So that also has propped up refining margins for the other players like Valero, VLO. And then there's been some positive news on the biofuels front, which also helps Valero, who's the largest biofuel producer in the country, together with Darling Ingredients. But other than that, I think the fuel demand side of the equation does not look good to us. Our macro team thinks the next couple of months are going to be a scenario of stagflation and or just what we call quad four, a period of where inflation and growth are decelerating, which is not a great scenario. Quad three, really energy works. Quad four is where utilities work better than energy, than oil and gas. And the large caps, the safer plays work best in that quad four.
Well, I've been, certainly I'm looking at my Vistra here. Whoever thought that Vistra, at $40 is now, in the hundreds for a power company. That AI trade, we're big members of the AI trade all the way down to the tech stack. But as we sort of spread out, I was going to ask you about the AI data center issues here. Do you follow any of these small nuclear reactor companies as well?
We don't follow them outright. I follow SMRs broadly and the producers. To me, I think I like the immediacy of natural gas as the way to play that because that is a much faster build out of power is going to be natural gas, and it gives you both the cost and the assuredness of supply in the near term. SMRs I think are very interesting, but they still have some hurdles, and I think it's a 7 to 10 year timeline here because I think that what folks don't get with SMRs is they think we're going to have an SMR next to our house that's going to power a neighborhood, but that's not it. The thing is, if they work, it's that you need to certify it once, and then you have a factory production of this. It's actually, if you look at someone like Venture Global and LNG, they're doing that with LNG. They have several modules that then build a large facility, but they can start turning them on as they are delivered. And if one module goes down, they can keep the other ones running. That's the same thing with SMRs. It's improving the reliability, decreasing the lead time to build. Now, instead of certifying every custom design, getting it permitted, etc., you can certify once, and then you can quality test, have certify the factory on the quality controls, and now you can build those much quicker and deliver them much quicker and service them much quicker.
Yeah, but we're not there yet, obviously. I think Jensen Huang was sort of right about saying it is a 3-year window here. I mean, SMR, the ticker symbol is for a SMR company that is the only one that's been certified by the Nuclear Regulatory Group. But still, them being certified has done nothing for the getting the site located, getting the site okay, getting, blah, 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 all the certification beyond just the fact that their small nuclear reactor works. As you say, there's a whole bunch of other factors that go into a SMR factory, pardon the pun, and it will be. The question is, the stocks became meme stocks, as you know, for a while there. It was every day. Some of these ones, Oklo used to be $8. I'm now looking at it now; it's $55. We own a small amount of these just simply because I believe in the system, and Oklo happened to be Sam Altman's little baby. So we figured that if OpenAI likes it,
Wright.
I'm sorry,
And Chris Wright.
and Chris Wright, exactly. So that to me, they had the right neighbors and the right backers. But we're not, I've sold a fair amount. Just look at how much we've sold, just because. I mean, are you kidding me? It's being priced as if they're operating, 5 different nuclear reactors right now.
I think it's longer than 3 years, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
I think we're talking sometime in the next decade. Not.
You mean when you're going to have some gray hair?
Maybe. My dad didn't get them until his late 50s, so I got 15 years still.
Fernando, how is it that how can people reach you? Through hedgeye.com?
You can always write us at sales@hedgeye.com, or I'm on X at Hedgeye Energy.
Yes, I just noticed his new thing. I have Fernando on my super tweet board, but you changed your thing, so I had to change it.
Yeah, I have my personal one that I just retweet what I do at Hedgeye Energy, but this is the official account right now.
All right, outstanding.
Outstanding is right. So, Fernando, we're going to leave it right there because this was great. It's a great special report. We know the audience needs some answers right away, and we're giving them to.
So oil prices have peaked, Fernando. Is that what you're trying to tell us?
July 4th.
I think for the near future, yes.
Okay.
We'll have to see. We'll have to see over the next couple of quads if the next month really is as bad as our signals are showing it could be. Then yes, that could be an issue.
So my giant SUV that costs $185 to fill up the tank, maybe I'm down to 160.
It's an F350, Toby. Let's tell everybody what it really is.
I think 160 is reasonable. I think 160 is probably reasonable. You're not going to go to 100.
Yeah, that I know. That I know. All right, brother. Great to have you on.
All right, well, this is great. So on behalf of Fernando Valle and Tobin Smith, I am Todd Schoenberger. Thank you once again for joining us on Buy Wholesale Special Report. We'll catch you next time. Take care.
Buy, hold, sell, brought to you by CrossCheck Management.